So my name is Sean Quigley, and I am the Executive Director here at Youth Diversion.
What are your goals for the organization?
So as an organization as a whole, our goal is to always help young people overcome challenges. And we do that by having programs and services that are available for youth and meet them where they're at, and to address those things that are getting in the way of them being successful. No young person has ever wanted to be homeless or have a substance use concern or want to be kicked out of school. So it's really on us to make sure we have the right programs available to support kids. And the other real main goal that I have is to try to involve the community more effectively in the work that we do. So that's why we have such a robust and successful volunteer program. Part of it is because of how the agency manages volunteers, but the other part is because the community is very concerned about the well-being of kids and they want to be involved.
Great. What gets you most excited about the organization's future?
You know, the agency has been around for 46 years, and it has grown in leaps and bounds over the years. I've been here for 25, and what still excites me is the commitment that staff have. Every day they come in, they're willing to move mountains to make things happen for kids and to give them a fighting chance. The other thing that excites me about the agency is that I consider Youth Diversion a disrupting agency. And what I mean by that is we're nimble, flexible. We have processes that are a little bit unorthodox compared to other community services. We reach kids where they're at. We will go to them. Just some of our practices that always keep children, youth, and families front and center, so that we can, do our best to help them overcome challenges. That's what excites me.
So, how would you describe the environment here? Is the work typically collaborative or more independent?
So I think the first thing that folks have to appreciate is that we're outreach. So on any given day, there's not a lot of staff that are here because they're out in the community doing the work that they do. And one of the things that I always worry is how isolated our staff can feel sometimes. What we've done is we've instituted kind of a team environment where we have groups of programs that have come together, like our preventions team, so that there are 3 staff that can support each other. Our Kairos team, there's 7 staff that support each other. Our Justice team, there's 5 staff there that support each other. And our school-based programs, where there's 4 staff there that try to support each other. In the past, it's been very isolating. So we do put a lot of effort into ensuring that staff have access to each other. As an agency in terms of the community, I think we're on top of our game when it comes to collaborating with other services in the community, because again, we recognize that we're not the answer for all of the issues that kids have. So we need our community partners. We need to be working with them, collaborating, and wrapping services around kids.
So, what's your favorite part about working here?
What's my favorite part about working here? I have to say that my favorite part is every now and then a kid will come back 20 years later and say, do you remember me? And one specific one is, while I was at the gym, a young man who's probably now in his late 30s. We both recognized each other, but we couldn't figure out from where, and he came up to me and he goes, "You work at Youth Diversion, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you remember me?" And I did, because he was a twin. That was one reason, and the other reason is because they were quite a fascinating group of kids, the 2 of them. And so we got to talking, and he was telling me about where he's at today, and he's in charge of a group of folks that are doing construction, struggled in his 20s, did spend some time in custody. But he attended our rebound program. He was about 12 or 13 years old. And he still remembered the Rebound Star. And he still remembered the volunteers that were at the table, the rebound coaches that supported him. And to me, when I hear those things, it really brings home for me the value of every single contact we have with kids. Whether you're a volunteer or a staff member, unfortunately, sometimes you may not be able to reap the benefits that you've sowed when you sat down and talked with a kid as a mentor or as a rebound coach or in the classroom. But I can tell you that 10, 15, 20 years later, they remember what you've done. They remember your interactions. They remember the efforts that you made to help them. Another quick story is a mentor and a mentee who hadn't seen each other in over 25 years got together as a bit of a reunion, and the mentee said to the mentor, "Do you remember when you used to take me to Tim Hortons?" And the mentor was a little bit hesitant, didn't quite remember it. And the mentee said, "Yeah, you used to take me to Tim Hortons. And why I remember that so much is because you were the only one to buy me specialty donuts when I was growing up. And then you and I would have these conversations that were fantastic." And the mentor looked at the mentee and said, "I don't remember this." And in fact, for the mentee, it was something that has been in his mind for over 20 years as a significant piece of his involvement at Youth Diversion. So it's those things that still give me chills and still make me know that what we're doing is working.
Wow. Tell me one thing you wish the community understood better about the youth we serve.
To me, I think it's that special sauce, that secret sauce of resilience. It's how it is that some kids that have come from the most deplorable backgrounds with lots of childhood trauma and still have built resilience. And how do we replicate that to help other kids? I think the other piece for me that's also critically important is that the more people that are engaging in youth diversion as volunteers or what have you, it's our way of trying to reduce the stigma. If a person could do well, why wouldn't they? Isn't doing well preferable than not doing well? So if somebody isn't doing well, did they choose that for themselves? And so getting involved and supporting these kids early on from a prevention perspective, you're starting to, for yourself, understand where they've come from, what their story is, what don't you know about them? And I think the residual impact of that is we start to reduce the stigma in our community around mental health and addictions.
Thank you.
I'm the coordinator of the Chance Mentoring Program. We match community volunteers with one-to-one with youth in the KFL&A community, where they work on 3 goals set for the mentorship, and they can either be recreational goals, cognitive, social, behavioral goals. We're pretty flexible with working on and towards whatever the youth has going on in their life right now.
Okay. And how long does a kid will be matched for in your program?
They'll be matched for 6 months in the program.
Okay. What would a volunteer be doing in your program, Caitlin?
So volunteers would be doing lots of different things in the mentoring program. The program is primarily based on volunteers. So they could be doing things like just plain old recreation activities with the youth. So say a gym or recreational sports, art, kind of anything like that, but also in terms of actually working on and towards goals. They could also technically be driving with the youth. They could also be supporting the youth maybe with getting documents. So maybe they need a bank account or an ID. The volunteers in this program definitely could be doing any number of activities. It's really more based on what the youth needs.
Okay. Now, what would be examples of behaviors that a volunteer might witness or be a part of?
Yeah, so I think that could kind of go from more positive to negative. So more of those positive experiences, maybe when the youth is completing a goal, they're getting to really see that resiliency and they're really getting to see those positive outcomes too. I think on the flip side though, volunteers should be aware that they might have disclosures from the youth told to them. So we might have to call CAS in some aspects as well. The youth could also be going through crises at home or at school. So just maybe helping to manage those negative emotions or those negative actions. So they could definitely be seeing both sides of the youth depending on what they're going through as well. So just to be prepared that we'll be seeing kind of like that rainbow of emotions.
Mm-hmm. Now, when would you say a volunteer should seek your support?
I would say they should seek my support if they're ever unsure or unclear about something. So for example, maybe they're unsure of something policy related or program related, definitely reach out to me for clarification. But also in turn, they might need some assistance with coming up with activities that are appropriate for the youth, or maybe they need support with calling CAS as they've never done that, or even just really difficult disclosures. I'm here for them to be able to debrief those events as well. So kind of just whatever they need, I really do let them know that I'm here to support and that they can always reach out to me. There's no question is a silly question. Everything's valid. And if I don't have the answer, then I'll look it up or I'll find someone who does for them.
Oh, that's so good. Now, how do you get your referrals to the mentoring program?
Yeah, so we actually service all of KFLNA, so all of Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington. So we can receive referrals for the mentoring program from a wide variety of places. I would say the most common agencies that are putting referrals into us are Family and Child Services, the Maltby Center, school teams within the LDSB, so Limestone District School Board. So whether that's an actual principal, a student support counselor in primary, or an adolescent care worker in high school. And then we actually also get a lot of internal referrals as well. So a lot of referrals from our Kairos addiction and mental health team, and then a lot of referrals from our intersections team as well, both Letitia and the clinical piece that Christy runs as well.
Can a kid refer themselves to the mentoring program or a parent refer them?
They can actually, that's a great point. So there can be self-referral. So there can be either like a parent or guardian, or if the youth really is interested or thinks they would benefit from those services, they can definitely put in a referral for themselves.
What are the ages of the kids that come to your program? How old are they?
So we've recently opened up the age range. So now officially starting in 2022, we are supporting youth ages 8 to 18.
Wow, good. And how many kids would you say at any one time would be in your program?
At least 25 matched youth at any one time.
Okay, as far as volunteers, what quality would you be looking for in a volunteer?
Oh, that's a great question. I really think that mentoring volunteers have to be open, adaptable, and flexible. There's definitely going to be things that come up that we just have to roll with and have patience for, especially just with the youth that we're supporting. So I think that's one really important quality. Also compassion and empathy, those are going to be huge for the clients we're supporting. And then I just think really positive, upbeat people too. We definitely want to be uplifting those youth. We want to be letting them know that they have all the potential, anything's possible for them. So just really positive, supportive people as well. And they don't need to have any experience in the social services field. So that's not necessarily a quality that we're looking for, just anyone and everyone who really does have a passion to work with and support youth.
Oh, that's so good. Now, finally, what do you like about what you do, Caitlin? What do you like about your job at Youth Diversion?
I love my job. I think one thing that I do really love is getting to work with such a diverse client and volunteer population, because we do get them from all over KFLNA. So we do get volunteers that are a little bit more rural, or volunteers that are more urban, just life experiences that comes with that too. I feel like I've learned so much from my clients and my volunteers. But I think the one thing that I love is just watching the rapport and the relationship build between the two, and just really seeing where they were when we first matched them, and then where they go when they hit that 6-month mark. The growth with the clients is usually astronomical. It's really wonderful to get to witness and be a part of. So I think that's my absolute favorite part.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Caitlin. I appreciate your time. So
yes, thanks so much.
Good morning. I'm Jackie Franklin. I'm the volunteer manager here at Youth Diversion, and I'm actually interviewing one of our volunteers, Tim, who's been with us in our mentoring program. So Tim, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and hopefully you can answer most of them for me.
For sure.
So how did you first learn about Youth Diversion, and what inspired you to volunteer?
So I discovered Youth Diversion through my own research. I was trying to find volunteer positions within the Kingston community, and what Youth Diversion stood out for me because it seemed like a very welcoming environment. And even though I have very little like volunteer experience, they were very welcoming no matter like the skill level, right? So, sorry, excuse me, my goodness. I have something stuck in my throat. 1 second, sorry. Okay. So yeah, I discovered Youth Diversion through my own research. They really stood out to me because it seemed like it was a very welcoming environment. And then even though I didn't have very much volunteer experience, they were very welcoming to that, and like no matter the skill level. So that really made them stand out to me compared to like other organizations. And then what inspired me to be a volunteer, growing up, there was really like no one there for me in the sense of like going through these difficult changes in my life, and especially in adolescence. And all the time you don't always want to go to your parents with everything, because you don't want to always talk about everything with your parents. And so I wanted to be that person for someone else, and I wanted to in a sense build that sort of like judgment-free environment where the adolescent that I'm working with, so my mentee, he can feel valued and like his opinions matter, because like I said, adolescence, it can be a difficult time, and I just wanted to help make that sort of transition easier for someone else.
Okay. And Tim, I think you kind of went into my second question, because I was going to ask you, in what way did you want to help the youth? So you kind of started off there about talking about your personal experience. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I'd say that like I definitely wanted to make a difference. I know that for a lot of the youth that are coming into this program, they come from very unstable homes. And being able to take them out of that environment, even only for a few hours a week, it just sort of helps take their mind off of things, kind of makes them almost like the center of the attention, right? Because maybe they might not be getting that kind of focus at home, and so being able to sort of help with that, and also to being able to see the change that I'm making with my mentee is like, I find that to be super rewarding as well.
Cool. Now, in respect to your goals coming into Youth Diversion, do you feel like your work aligned with your expectations? What you had expected,
I'd like to think so. I really found that like, I wanted to explore whether or not this would be a line of work I could see myself doing in the future. And I really want to know if the skills that I had aligned with this to a certain extent. Like I'm studying psychology, and I was going into my third year, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And I saw this as a perfect opportunity to sort of just try something new, take a risk, and like I said, take a risk on things, right? Because a lot of like what I'm experiencing at school, it's very like academic based, and adolescence and like emerging adulthood is a field that I was like interested in the classroom sense, but I didn't really know if I had like a practical interest in it to see if like it would be something that I wanted to do.
So would you say that your goals kind of did align then with what you're actually doing with the youth that you're matched up with then, Tim?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that for a lot of it, you know, I am sort of expanding on those skills that I had and sort of growing those further. And I'm really enjoying that aspect of the programming.
Awesome. Now, how would you describe your volunteer position at Youth Diversion as a mentor volunteer?
I would describe it as fulfilling. Like I said before, you know, being able to see that change in my mentee and in their family is something that, you know, I really wasn't, not that I wasn't expecting it, but I didn't expect the like impact that it would have on me, and like how rewarding that can be. You know, just like seeing him become more confident. And also too, I really value like the recognition that I receive from like the professional staff like yourself and Caitlin, who I talk to quite a bit, and just sort of like having that relationship with them as well.
Mm-hmm. So Tim, not mentioning any names or anything, but can you give us some examples of what kinds of stuff that you did with your mentee and where you saw the growth from what you did when you started to actually what you've seen at the end? What that they achieved? Was there a particular goal that you guys kind of worked on?
So with my mentee, a lot of what we were doing was just more so like spending time outside. You know, we'd go for walks at the different nature reserves across Kingston. Mm-hmm. And we just spent like a lot of that time talking, because, you know, when I first met him, he was very much so a quiet, like very reserved individual. And it took a lot of work to get to the stage where I like am with my relationship now with him, where it's like it went from me doing all the talking to him now doing all the talking, which it's fantastic to see that, right? Like it in a sense takes a lot of stress and pressure off of me, and just more so I like to see the responsibility that he's gained in leading this sort of like mentor-mentee relationship that we have with each other.
So Tim, just getting diving a little bit deeper, what do you think caused that change in the young person? Like your personal experience, like what do you think made him move to be, you know, working with you so nicely?
I think a lot of that has to do with how I approached being a mentor. Because when I first went into the program, like I was a little bit like, I'd say nervous about things, and like, you know, trying to figure out like how is it going to be with my relationship with him, my relationship with the organization, and my relationship with his parents as well. But knowing that like for him to be in this program, he has to want to be there, and his parents have to want him to be there. So that helped to make things easier. But I think for myself, what really helped was, you know, showing him that I trusted him. So I told him about myself. I told him about my interests, my hobbies, things that I liked, and like bounced ideas off of him. You know, showing him that I trusted him allowed him to trust me.
Mm-hmm. So that was a key part, eh? The trust part that, you both developed with each other. Amazing. Okay. So you might have answered some of this already, but do you feel as if your volunteer role had a positive direct impact on the youth? And I think you mentioned a lot about that. Is there anything else? How about tell me a little bit about the parents? How did you find, like you talked about them being supportive. How were they supportive to you?
I find that like what really made my relationship with my mentee, what really helped my relationship with my mentee through his parents was more so just like their ability to be like understanding and always being able. So like when I would never plan times to hang out with him through him, I would always do it through his parents. Mm-hmm. And just so their ability to always be like understanding of maybe there was a weekend where I wasn't available, or there was a weekend where maybe he wasn't available, just like always sort of being open about those things, and just, you know, always trying to make on both sides, everybody just always trying to make their best effort to make those meetings that we did. So it was nice to see that, and nice to have that.
Great. Awesome. What was your major challenge that you faced as a volunteer at Youth Diversion? And how did you overcome it?
I'd say the biggest challenge that I faced would be not tripping over my own feet and trusting my own leadership skills. Because I myself have a tendency to be like a very shy, sort of like nervous person. And when you have that mentor-mentee relationship, it's not very productive to have two very shy, quiet individuals spending like multiple hours together. It can be like very difficult, and you won't get a lot of like work done, or there won't be a lot of relationship building. So I really had to like force myself to come out of my own shell in that extent. And then by doing that, it was able to allow him to come out of his shell too.
So Tim, it seemed that like this was a two-way street, that he gained, but also you also had a lot to gain too from this relationship, didn't it?
Very much so. I've learned I've learned just as much about myself through my mentee as I'm sure that he's learned through me. Like like you said it perfectly. It's a two-way street. Like I'm learning just as much from him as he's learning from me.
Wow, that's such amazing. As a volunteer manager, what one thing that you wish that the organization could have done to help you in any of your situations? Is there anything that, you know, that, oh my God, I wish if we had done this or not done this? Is there anything there that stood out to you that you wish we could have done to help you in any way?
That's a difficult question, because I feel like I've had a very, very positive relationship with Youth Diversion, and this sort of being my first time really being a volunteer mentor. I think like I don't know how it could have gone better.
Oh, that's amazing.
Right?
That's so nice to hear.
And I'm not just saying that, but like I'm being honest. Like I think honestly everything like went as good as it could have. And even when there were issues, when I reached out, like when I was struggling to, in a sense, make that connection, or having trouble getting my mentee to like make goals, Youth Diversion it's like you guys were always there, always like good advice, sort of willing to hear what I had to say, never really like never shut me down for anything, or just like never gave me any sort of constructive feedback or like help. Like I never got a solution like, oh, that's rough, I'm sorry you're dealing with that. It was always like, okay, how can we solve this? What about this? Like there was always that constructive relationship between the two of us, like myself and Youth Diversion.
Nice, amazing. All right, so my final question to you would be, what one important piece of advice you have for volunteers looking to be a mentor volunteer? What advice would you have to share with them?
I would say that you need to make sure that you're two things, empathetic and patient, because it's like I said before, it's going to take a while to really get your mentee to trust you. And that's like part of the process, right? Like it's going to take a little bit. It's not going to be like an immediate thing where you guys are just automatically best friends. Like it's going to take a while to build that relationship. But once they do open up to you, you have to be prepared to give them that validation, right? You have to be prepared to be empathetic towards what they're saying or how they're feeling, and just be patient throughout the entirety of that process.
Awesome. This has been amazing, Tim. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. And I wish you all the best in your future successes. And I hope that this was this is going to be one of your best volunteer opportunities that you had. And you'll always remember Youth Diversion and know that we're always here for you anytime if you need us.
Thanks, Jackie. I really appreciate that.
You're
and yeah,
welcome.
this has definitely been one of the most rewarding volunteer experiences that I've had.
Great. Thank you.
Victoria Adams. I am the rebound coordinator at Youth Diversion. I started here about a month and a half ago, so the role is a little new to me, but jumped right in, having a lot of fun with it. We are currently, tonight would have been the third session of Rebound, so we're 2-3 weeks in. So Rebound is a 10-week life skills and cognitive skills program that's designed to help youth with any challenges of adolescence. We go through different topics every single week. So the first couple weeks have been team building and communication. We cover other topics such as healthy relationships, internet safety, responsibility, resiliency, and we teach these things through activities that are led by volunteers. And it's a lot of fun. Kids come in for an hour and a half and just hang out with their peers and volunteers and just do pretty cool activities.
Great. And what would a volunteer be doing in your program?
So the program is actually led by volunteers. Right now we have about 25 kids enrolled in the program. And so they're each split into 3 groups, and they have 3 volunteers per group. And they're the ones that do the activities, do the teaching. We try and do an introduction to each topic that has a bunch of resources and information about what is a team, how are you a leader, how are you a follower, where do you fall into a team. That's just some of the examples of stuff that we do. So the volunteers will be teaching our youth, and they run the activities with them. They have a huge role in Rebound, which is great.
Okay. And what would be examples of behaviors volunteers might witness or be part of Rebound? And when should a volunteer seek your support?
So volunteers will experience some behavioral issues such as roughhousing or maybe some outbursts, maybe inappropriate conversations. And we've given direction to volunteers to kind of divert conversations or try and mediate situations. And they would come seek our support if things are not going properly and they can't get through activities and stuff. There's also potential that youth will disclose information that we would need to call Children's Aid Society for. That is something that happens not very often, but often enough that it's something that we have to discuss with our volunteers. And we do debriefs at the end of each session, so there's room for volunteers to ask questions about certain behaviors and if they need additional support then.
That's good. And how do we get referrals?
So a lot of our referrals come from other programs at Youth Diversion. So Intersections is a big one. I get some from the mentoring program and youth outreach. The way that Rebound first started was that it was a court-mandated program. So youth that were in conflict with the law, they could use this program as a way of diverting them away from being incarceration and stuff like that. And right now they're the idea before COVID was that it was run through schools, but right now we're running them just in the community. So we get a lot of referrals from Youth Diversion itself, but I have got some from Family and Children's Services and the schools and the community. Yeah.
And what are some examples a youth would be referred to your program?
So like I said earlier, some of it does come from youth being in conflict with the law. That is still something that happens, it's just not as frequent. Some of the other types of youth that are referred is just mostly high behaviors in school, or they're going down a path where they become at risk of being in conflict with the law. So some kids will come to us who have been in bad friend groups, or they're experiencing some smoking issues and stuff. And so we just kind of teach them these life skills to help get them back on track.
I know you have mentioned it before, but maybe once again, how many kids are in your program and what are the ages of the youth in your program?
So typically, my goal this session was to have 30 kids in the program, and we almost got that. It really depends on how many kids get referred to us and want to engage in the program. Usually the groups range from 20 to 30 kids. And right now we're taking youth ages 12 to 17.
Okay. And what qualities are you looking for in a volunteer?
So the volunteers that we get, we usually want some highly motivated, great role models that want to help teach the youth of our community some really awesome life skills and get engaged in great programs. Yeah, just great role models is what we're looking for.
Okay. Why do you like what you do?
I like what I do because I get to do some program planning. I get to help out kids. I get to walk around and bring snacks to kids and always put a smile on their faces. I also like to have those kind of tougher debrief conversations. I've had to pull youth aside every single week so far just to kind of talk about any behaviors that have happened and provide extra support. And it's just fun. I get a little taste of everything. It's great.
Sounds really good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Anatola Stewart. I'm the SNAP Classroom Coordinator. SNAP stands for the School and Non-Academic Program. We're an alternative to home-based suspensions for students in the Limestone District School Board and the Algonquin Lakeshore Catholic District School Board. So we host students from grade 7 to grade 12, and while they're at our program, they receive mental health supports, academic support, and life skills support.
And what would a volunteer be doing in your program?
So our volunteers support our students with academics, often working one-on-one with them. Our volunteers also help staff with administrative tasks and life skills programming, and they're a positive role model for students in the room.
What would be examples of behaviors volunteers might witness or be part of SNAP, and when should a volunteer seek your support?
So volunteers will probably see a variety of behaviors in the room. Staff supervise students at all times, so staff will address behaviors. We ask that volunteers check in with us about the behaviors they're seeing, what they're hearing, so staff can address them. At the same time, we're here to support volunteers as well, so if volunteers have any questions or concerns, we'd like to hear them.
And how do you get your referrals?
So our referrals come from the vice principals and principals.
How many youth are in your program, and what are the ages of the youth in your program?
So our students are from grade 7 to grade 12, again from the Catholic board and the public board, and we host can host up to 12 students at a time.
And what kind of qualities are you looking for in a volunteer?
So for our volunteers, we're looking for people who are friendly and adaptable and are comfortable showing initiative to engage with our youth.
Why do you like what you do?
I love what I do because I get to see students engage in personal growth. I get to see them build their confidence and learn new skills, and I love it.
So, thank you.
Hi, Catherine Rose. As you know, my name is Jackie Franklin. I'm the volunteer manager here, and I'd like to ask you a few questions about your experience volunteering with us as a rebound and as a SNAP volunteer. So, how did you first learn about youth diversion, and what inspired you to volunteer?
Yeah, so I first learned about youth diversion. I was in grade 12 actually, and I remember I'd been just accepted to Queen's, and something that's kind of always been important to me is getting involved in the community, but also in a way that's long term. I find when I do community work, I want to stay with an organization for a long time. And make a long-term investment, and that's something. As I was going into university, I was thinking, how am I going to use my degree? How am I going to use my skill set in a way that I feel comfortable with, in a way that I feel like I'm actually getting an education and putting it to good use. And for me, one of those ways was to give back through education. And it was something especially I really liked when I was reading about youth diversion, and even just like kind of exploring like the website, learning about the different impacts on youth. Was even like as myself going through high school, I had moments where I really struggled, moments where post-secondary education wasn't always something that was on the goal line for me, or something that I thought was super attainable. So being able to go to Queen's, that was something I really wanted to do, was to be able to use my degree in a way that would help others in terms of education. So yeah, that kind of inspired me, and was just kind of the idea of making a really long-term commitment in a way that I can use my own personal experiences as well as my degree too.
Awesome. Okay. As an organization, did Youth Diversion support you in achieving your goals, would you say?
Yeah, for sure. It's honestly I remember my SNAP placement was amazing, and it was such a coincidence too. I remember they sent out an email to like everyone in Con Ed, and I was just lucky that I ended up responding at 7 in the morning, and I got the spot, and I remember I was so happy. But yeah, I remember the SNAP program, something that really surprised me, and it was I was really finding my footing as an educator then as well. You know, very like I was kind of unsure of what the approach I wanted to take. You know, the ways that I wanted to engage with students, especially through like an alternative education approach. And I remember Tola, if I can use Tola's name.
Please do. Yeah.
Tola specifically was amazing. She was always from the start. You know, she told me, I remember her saying the relationships here and the work we do here is based on trust. And since then, that has always been in the back of my mind. You know, every student I engage with, whether it's, you know, with Youth Diversion or externally as well, is keeping that in mind, is that trust is the foundation for education, you know, and for meaningful relationships. That can't happen without trust. You know, Tola was super encouraging as well in terms of bringing my own experiences to the table in program development. So whether that was gardening, I brought a lot to the table in terms of food security. So things like budgeting, grocery shopping, teaching students how to cook, gardening as well. It was, I think things went online halfway through my placement, so I didn't get to implement a lot of the like physical initiatives I had. But even then, it was awesome just to be able to generate those ideas, you know, to shoot ideas around with different educators in the classroom. It really kind of sparked my interest and just, you know, showed me as a teacher that there's so much we individually have the potential to contribute, you know, with our own skill set, with our own interests. So that was amazing. And in Rebound as well, I found just like checking in all the time after every session, communicating with each other, you know, bringing up different ideas and solutions. That was always something the flow of communication has been amazing. And I've always felt, you know, incredibly supported in both programs that I did.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, in respect to your goals coming into the Youth Diversion, do you feel that your work aligned with your expectations?
Yeah, I would say it did. I would say something that did surprise me was I think the nature of the relationship with students. And I think I kind of came into the program with not a lot of expectations about you know, what the dynamics would be and that sort of thing. I found something that, you know, surprised me was the, you know, the importance of engaging individually with students. I think before I always kind of viewed myself as a classroom educator, someone who engages with students just on a collective level. And there are a lot of benefits to that, but I think, you know, part of the magic at Youth Diversion is that, you know, we're engaging individually with the youth, that we have time to have individual conversations, you know, to get to know people, to exchange information on that individual level. And that's something I think has been incredibly important to building relationships, you know, to doing work that I consider meaningful as well, that I consider significant. So I think for me, that's something that kind of changed my expectation of my role in the classroom. And, you know, my role as even a facilitator is just understanding that there's, you know, as much as there's a collective element to the group, it's also, you know, making sure that students are connected with individually throughout the programming too.
Good stuff. Now, how would you describe your work, or I should say your volunteer experience at Youth Diversion? Tell me a little bit more about SNAP and a little bit more about Rebound probably.
Yeah, so in SNAP, my role, I was working directly with students who were not in the traditional education system. So I was helping them kind of find ways to complete their credits, whether they were doing kind of the online school format or they were meeting them through non-traditional means. So sometimes I was making art, like going outside for walks, physical education. We did lots of mindfulness activities, I remember as well when I was there. And I really liked, it was a very holistic approach to education. And I think that's what kind of amazed me with the SNAP classroom, was it was taking the individual students' interests and passions, and then using that to create curriculum, you know, pedagogy that really resonated with the students. And I loved it because it challenged students, you know, it pushed students to do their best. And I think challenged students to push their own boundaries of what they were capable of. But then also in a way that was very healthy and was constantly, you know, not just from an educational standpoint, but also checking in holistically with students too. And then in Rebound, a lot of the work I did, it was with, I believe like ages 7 to 12.
Okay.
So it was a younger group. And that was something that surprised me as well, was I always expected that I would just want to work with teenagers. And I loved it equally as much to working with the high school kids as well. Like, it was just amazing. So that was really nice as well, because for me, and a lot in my work as well, I find as an educator, something I really want to teach is like emotional regulation skills, social skills, just tools that'll help students navigate the world, especially in terms of conflict or those interpersonal situations where those skills they aren't always learned at home. Mm-hmm. And that was amazing as well, to approach things from, a mental health standpoint, teaching students to express themselves emotionally and communicate with each other. I really liked that as well. It was a very educational approach to navigating, the education system, navigating relationships with each other. So yeah, that was really cool too.
Yeah, nice. Now, Catherine Rose, what would you say that you're going to take away from volunteering at Youth Diversion? What if there was one thing you had to say that surprised you that you're going to take away and, possibly use down the road? What would that be, or what would that look like?
I would say most importantly, and I think it's a value that I've definitely learned over the past few years, is the importance of, long-term investment and commitment. And just showing up consistently. And I think that's, it's something I've learned doing work with youth. And it was something actually someone told me. I started a tutoring position when I was in first year. And I remember they said to me, there's a lot of people in these youth's lives who just don't show up. They make promises and they don't follow through. They'll say they're going to be there for students and then they're not. And as a result, a lot of youth, they don't set high expectations for the adults in their lives. They don't expect, that people will be like positive role models and support them. And I think that's something I've always thought about, especially in terms of managing my own personal life in terms of volunteering, is to always, and that's even like advice to other people as well, is to always make sure that, your own issues and such are in check as well, that you feel fully present as an educator, that you're ready to put aside your own life to engage with students. And I think that's something I'm always going to take with me, is just understanding the importance of long-term commitment, of consistently showing up every week to engage with students, and not just physically being there, but also being ready to engage as well. Coming up with ideas, initiative, taking accountability, being an active listener in the classroom. It's really just, I think it's the act of just being there and really fully engaging with the program. That's, I think, the best advice I could give to my younger self going into the program is, don't worry about having like special skills, or, you took that one course, in education. It's not about that. It's about honestly just being there and like trying your best. And, it's comforting, but it's work for sure to show up and put in the effort. Mm-hmm.
That's so nice to hear that. Amazing. Now, do you feel as a volunteer that you made a positive direct impact on any of the youth? And if so, how come?
Yeah, I would say so. There's specific students that, I won't say names or anything, of course, but specific students I can remember who, I've just, there's like specific moments where, you can tell you really connect with a student, and those for me are kind of the highlights of the program. And sometimes it's very unexpected too, like how you'll connect with the student. I remember one time I was just like playing a game and we were running around like hiding from ghosts. And that was, we just kind of took a walk from the classroom to de-escalate essentially, and it ended up being a really fun game. And kind of like a way to engage the class afterwards as well. So I thought that was kind of cool. And I think it's just those small moments of showing students that, you care about, how their school day went and the things that are bugging them when they're in program, after school. And I think that's kind of, one of my favorite moments is when, things get challenging. There's always that opportunity for growth. There's always an opportunity for connection. I think that's kind of a cool part of it, is seeing, when things do get tough in the classroom or when challenges come up, just viewing a way, or, kind of like seeing them as a way to connect with the students and build, on what's being taught in the classroom instead of viewing it as a challenge or an issue.
You might have answered most of this one for me, because my question was, what was your major challenge you faced? What was their major challenge you faced as a volunteer at Youth Diversion, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I would say, I mentioned it earlier as well, was just, realizing kind of in I would say a dynamic as well, you know, in addition to just like accountability and, you know, really showing up within the classroom. Sorry, I have a couple notes here on this one too, because I remember, yeah, I said something I really wanted to bring up was just balancing, you know, empathy with accountability in the classroom. For me, it's something, you know, learning about the challenges that students have faced. You know, they're incredibly difficult, and you know, it's very easy to empathize as well. But something I found as well is kind of learning that balance between understanding the student's situation and then also pushing them to be better as well, pushing them, you know, to change their circumstances. And I mean by giving them the tools to do so, you know, offering them different perspectives that they might not have heard before. And I think something for me that was a challenge I faced was, you know, how do you help people in terms of, you know, seeing things differently, in terms of like gaining motivation, wanting to make a change. And it can't be forced. And I think that empathy is like been hugely important in terms of, you know, showing students that, you know, we see their side of the story, we see the things that they've been through. But then also, you know, being able to balance that with, you know, telling students that you believe in the capacity for them to do better, to grow, you know, as learners, but also as people as well. So I think for me, that's been a huge part, is finding that balance, you know, in terms of how can I help students be better while also, you know, recognizing where they're at and understanding that too.
Really good, thanks. Now, my last question will be, what's one important piece of advice that you would give to any other volunteers coming into one of our programs? And I know you said a lot of it before, but what would the one piece of advice would you like to share?
I would say, like, really consider why you're doing the work, because I feel like that's where, you know, any potential issues might come up, or, you know, even kind of deciding the role you want to play in youth diversion or as a volunteer. It's really going to come down to like your intentions as an individual. I think another important thing is realizing that you're doing this work for other people and not yourself. I would say that's a huge part of it as well. You know, I think obviously there are advantages in terms of gaining experience, your career, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it really is about the students, I think, and that's the most important part, is asking yourself before you start programming, you know, why you're doing this, and then that'll kind of help you figure out your goals as a volunteer. And I think it'll be really helpful in terms of opportunity for growth, or even like applying your own skill set as a volunteer, is really looking, you know, why am I doing this? And then kind of going from there, like, what skill set do I have to help the youth as well? I think that's kind of helpful in terms of just guidance as a volunteer, and then also ensuring that you and the students have like a really fulfilling experience as well.
Oh my gosh, Catherine Rose, thank you so much for your time. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate you giving me the time to ask you these questions.
Jillian. I'm the Youth Justice Coordinator at Youth Diversion. I work with youth who have been charged with a low-risk offense or are first-time offenders. So we have a pre-charge program and a post-charge program, and basically it's an alternative to formal court proceedings to hold youth accountable for their actions through a restorative justice approach.
And what would a volunteer be doing in your program?
Yeah, so the main role for a volunteer is to facilitate our Youth Justice Committee meetings. So at this meeting, it brings the youth, so the young offender and the victim, together to discuss how the youth's action impacted the victim, and also to discuss or develop a resolution plan for the youth to make amends for their actions. A key role that the volunteers also play within our program is that they bring the voice of the community to that meeting. So they can discuss with the youth how their offending behavior impacted the community as a whole.
And what would be examples of behaviors volunteers might witness or be part of while being in a youth justice program? And when should a volunteer seek your support?
Yeah, so during Youth Justice Committee meetings, sometimes it can be an overwhelming process for some of the youth. So the volunteers may experience a youth who is withdrawn or resistant or displaying some anxiety. There could also be some parent-teen conflict between the youth and their guardian. at these meetings, but there's always a staff member present. The volunteers are never working one-on-one with the youth. So if things were to escalate, there's always a staff there to jump in and support.
Mm-hmm. And how do you get your referrals?
Yeah, so for our pre-charge program, we get our referrals from police officers. And for post-charge, we get it from Crown attorneys.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the reasons the police would refer a youth to your program for?
Yeah, so typically when we receive a referral from police officers, it's for first-time offenders or low-risk offenses. So the most common would be theft under 5,000, mischief under 5,000, or low levels of assault.
Okay. And how many kids would you have in a year, and what are the ages of the youth in your program?
Mm-hmm. So with the combination of the pre-charge diversion and post-charge diversion, we typically have around 100 youth annually, and we work with youth ages 12 to 17.
What qualities are you looking for in a volunteer?
We're looking for volunteers who are compassionate, someone who's empathetic, a good listener, and also has a good understanding of restorative justice practices.
Why do you like what you do?
Well, a lot of the youth who are referred to our program, they have a lot of complex needs, or they come from backgrounds or environments that they don't usually have control over. So I really enjoy supporting them and helping them navigate some of those challenges that they're facing, and providing them with education or supports to hopefully reduce their likelihood of reoffending in the future.
So is there anything you want to tell future youth diversion volunteers?
It's a great place. I did my placement here and I'm now a staff here. So with whatever program, whether it's youth justice or another program at Youth Diversion, it's very fulfilling.
Thank you.
Hi, Abba. And how are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. So, Abba, I know you've been volunteering with us for many years, many years. How long have you actually been with us?
I don't know, actually. Somebody was asking me that the other day. Maybe this is where preparation would have worked. But I guess I think like after I just graduated my undergrad, so maybe like 2002, somewhere around there.
Okay. And how did you learn about us at Youth Diversion? Like, how come you came to volunteer at Youth Diversion?
Well, I think like in Trinidad, I mean, I always had a strong sense of like giving back to the community, and so I would do that in different areas. So I used to volunteer at like Heartwork Studios and Heartworks because they were close to my house and I saw them. And then one of my friends, I worked at a restaurant in Kingston. She was talking about how she had a buddy from Youth Diversion and it was so great, and she talked about it. And then I was like, okay, I'll go see what they're about, and that was that, I guess.
And here you are, 20 plus years or whatever, right?
Yeah, I know. Still there.
Yeah. So, Abba, coming into Youth Diversion, in what way did you want to help our kids?
Well, I think for me, I think coming to Kingston and Canada from Trinidad, it was kind of isolating. And I think it's just like being there as a community member so that people know that there's someone that they can count on and talk to, and just being like an ally for kids. Because I think we all make decisions, whether we label them good or bad or whatever we do, we all make a choice sometimes that may happen to us or, circumstance. And it's just to have someone there supporting you and being like, I know that your intentions are good and I hear you and I'm seeing you. I think that's really important. And so I guess I just want to be someone who could kind of be that support, even if it's just for a little bit for that person.
Nice. Now, in respect to your goals coming into Youth Diversion, do you feel that your volunteer role aligned up with your expectations?
I think so. I mean, I think like I've kind of worked my way through Youth Diversion. Like I had a buddy, we did rebound program, and then I've done youth court. And so I think like at those different stages, it didn't, so rebound we did for a long time. And then my partner, Ted, joined as well. And we were like the coaches, and it was great, This was before we had kids, and just wanting to like, break things down and just say, I think sometimes it's a different language, having kids now, that kids talk and adults talk, and just having a space to be silly, but also to kind of like impart some, life bits of wisdom was really nice. And so I think, along each stage, it's just been there, that overarching, like supporting kids and supporting your community has always been there throughout the whole time that I've volunteered.
Would you say that Youth Diversion supported your goal in helping you to support your goal?
Would I say that Youth Diversion helped me to support my goal? I mean, I think Youth Diversion is a supportive environment. Like, I feel like if it is, I think if I didn't, I don't think I would be here 20 years later. So I think obviously that I see value in what it is that we're doing and have been doing. And so I guess, so yes.
Now, do you feel as a volunteer that your role has a positive impact on the youth? Were you ever able to see what you did and how it impacted the kid?
Actually, yeah, I think for a long time, like I would have these discussions, like, is this, are we making a difference? Well, not really, but sometimes you do stuff and I'm doing it because I want to give back, but you don't know if it's a reciprocal, if people are feeling given back to, or, And I think one day, my husband and I were walking down the street and we like heard somebody yelling like, I volunteered, and we're like, oh my God, what is happening? And like this kid ran up to us and he was like, I just want to let you know all the great things I'm doing. I have this job at, I guess it was A&P, what is it now, Metro, but A&P at the time, and this is what I'm doing here, and blah, blah, blah. And it was so nice to see because, you never get any feedback. So it was really super nice that, not only that person was doing that, but they felt the need to like run across the street to come tell us about like all their achievements and what they were doing. And so that was really kind of encouraging. With respect to youth court, I think it's nice to be able to sit down and have a space to discuss, because I think we live in such a society sometimes that everything is so fast, or we just get a verdict handed to us or whatever. But it's a space where you could come and discuss why it is and maybe go through mentally what you've done. And it's nice to see like the restorative approach to it. So we never get feedback with respect to that, because obviously it's a confidential type of procedure. But during the process, I think it's nice to see, and you sometimes you can just see like an aha moment, or a shift in recognition of like, okay, well maybe this could have been handled differently, and that's nice to see.
Do you, Abba, in your time at the youth court, what would you say would be one of the most valuable lessons you've learned, either from another volunteer or even from a kid?
I think a valuable lesson is, it's that we're no different from each other. I think that we all sometimes get ourselves in circumstances, and that sometimes you just need somebody to like listen and chat it out with, and that and that's very much appreciated. So maybe what I've learned is something, and I don't always apply it, my kids will probably tell you that, but I think like at least like trying to listen and hear what it is that they're saying, versus just judging someone quickly on something that's happened, because there may be other circumstances that lead up to it. And listening to the why before you react to what happened. And so I guess maybe that.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Nothing advice that you would give to another volunteer coming into to do youth court at Youth Diversion? What would one piece of advice?
To do youth court? Just we come in and listen, and just remember that we all go through different choices, and it's a great experience to be, as I say, part of that like restorative circular process. And I think just coming in knowing that we're coming with empathy, we're coming with real life experience as to what life has kind of taught us so far, and we're just there to give these people an opportunity to kind of share their story and see how we could reconcile that to be a little bit more restorative leaving. So just being open to listen and be silent, and then ask pertinent questions, and then just allow the process to kind of unfold.
Nice. Abba, now as the volunteer manager, what would you like to see us at Youth Diversion do more of?
I think I think you try, but the pandemic has been difficult, and I think like when we see things like previous coordinators have been very good in kind of coming up with tools, whether it's like so for example, I realized like not recently, but in the last 10 years, I guess, which isn't, I guess, recent for some, but there's been much more rise of like sharing of pictures without consent and like that sort of stuff, and like the jargon of like social media and texting and short forms. And so, we asked, and we did get it, someone to come and talk to us about like, what do some of these things mean, because as, someone that's not privy to that stuff and not really growing up with it, just understanding it so that when we went into a discussion that had to do with it, we knew what we were talking about. So just making sure that we continue to stay up to times in terms of what it is kids are doing or maybe challenged with, that we would be then having to kind of listen to and kind of ask questions about, so that we're going kind of ready and equipped, to understand what it is they're saying.
Wow, this has been great. Well, thank you, Abba, for your time.
Okay.
Is there any final thoughts that you wanted to share with another volunteer?
No, I think like, you do it for what it is you are trying to do, and just be genuine in what you are trying to achieve, and choose the program that fits best for you. If you want to have something and you need a schedule type of thing and want it for a specific time, maybe rebalance the program. Or if you want to just on your own time have a bonding experience with someone, maybe mentorship is more for you. Or if you want, to be part of this restorative circle, and that way you can kind of choose the times that you can come when there's a case, well, maybe this is you. So just kind of, like anything else, just making sure that it fits to your true, authentic, values of what it is you're trying to get. And then you as well as just being as part of it would be enriched by it.
Well, Abba, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
We'll talk soon.
Ciao.
Take care, my dear.
Okay, bye for now.
Thanks.
Carly and I, we run the MEND program for Youth Diversion. It's a collaboration with the Limestone District School Board. MEND stands for Mediating to End Negative Disagreements. So essentially we're a restorative practice program that provides mediation services to classrooms in the Limestone School Board. And we also do prevention, which is classroom circle, also for the classrooms, and that's to create community. So in that, we also do teacher trainings where we provide trainings for teachers and everyone in the education system who's interested to learn about restorative practices and implement circles in their classrooms.
So what are the ages of the youth in your program?
The youth that MEND serves are ages 4, you can work with JK all the way up to high school, which I believe now is 17.
How do you get the referrals, and what are some examples of kids would be referred to you?
So the referrals come through the teachers and the admin, anyone in the school board. Types of issues usually revolve around conflict, peer dynamics. So we will do mediations among students that are having issues getting along or conflicts that have occurred in the past. We will do mediations with them. Also, we'll do classroom circles. So if an issue has arisen in a classroom, they will come and do classroom circles for that school.
Tell me what you do that helps youth and their families.
Okay. What we do there that helps youth and their families. I think the essential component to MEND is that we create a safe, caring space and time for young people to have a voice and be heard. Because what we know, that is one of the fundamental needs of every human, whether they're 4 years old or 64 years old. And I think that's the biggest gift MEND brings to youth and their families.
Why do you like what you do?
Well, I like it. We like it because we're helping people. The restorative approach is non-punitive, so we're really focusing on the harm that's been caused, taking accountability, and creating understanding, compassion, and empathy. So every day is different in our job. We love it. We love working with students and being in the schools.
Who are some of your community partners?
Our strongest community partner is Limestone District School Board, And there's many facets, as everyone can guess, within the school board. So we work with administrators, we work with superintendents, we work with the Indigenous Advisory Council, Behavioral Assessment Team, and other community partners involved, Maltby, One Roof. Really MEND and the restorative approach in general is really about collaboration, community involvement, and connection. So we are open to working with anyone within KFL.
Great.
I know you said that correctly. KFL. And further beyond.
Tell me one thing you wish the community understood better about the youth we serve.
This is the hard question, right?
I think, as I said before, for me, youth want to be heard, and they're so often dismissed, and their perspectives and ideas are undervalued or devalued because of their perceived lack of knowledge or wisdom. But I can attest to the fact that if given the chance to be heard, to be understood, valued, and respected, they will show the adults in their lives the same things.
Very well said.
Oh yeah.
I love that. I also feel like we get to the why. Often in education, we see behavior and we just focus on the what happened, but MEND really focuses on the why. We try and get beyond the position and get to the interest, which is all about listening to the students, and what she's so eloquently said.
So is there anything you want to tell the future volunteers of Youth Diversion?
I guess the only thing is that MEND doesn't have volunteers, so as I should be clear, because I'm sure everyone's really excited to hear this. No, you can cut that. But at this point, MEND, our schedule is very unpredictable, and so at this point, MEND doesn't have volunteers. But we also encourage people to look at restorative justice, restorative practices, because this philosophy, this values principle system, is something that can be brought to parenting, criminal justice, mentoring. It's really a way of being as opposed to doing something to someone. So really encourage people, for any volunteer placement they may take with Youth Diversion, to do a little more research in understanding the restorative way.
Thank you.
So my name's Jake. I work with the Kairos program at Youth Diversion. Kairos is a program that is designed to help young people who are struggling with substances. We're able to provide substance use counseling one-to-one. We can do some group work. We also provide education, which I'll hand to Jamie. She's in charge of the education piece.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and I work at Kairos. So we provide education at different levels. So we have a 7-week prevention program that we do in the public schools. We also do one-offs in high schools, maybe a gym class. Sometimes for United Way, we'll share what we do. Queens, whoever basically needs any sort of education when it comes to youth, we provide that. Jake and I also do a training for frontline workers, just to learn best practice of how to work with youth who struggle with substance use issues.
And what are the ages of the youth in your program?
So Kairos works with folks as early as grade 3 and as late as sort of like 24 years old, where we would start to transition them to the adult programs.
So we do have an elementary addiction counselor who only focuses on elementary. And then we do have a few other counselors that help him out because it's a big job for one person. And it's supposed to be 18, but some of us are in adult learning centers, and there's really long wait lists for adult services. So we will take clients on who are looking for supports in the interim that they get adult services.
And how do you get your referrals, and what are some examples of why kids would be referred to you?
Sure.
So referrals kind of come from everywhere. A lot of times they're coming from the school. So principals or admin at the school will refer somebody to us. Other times it's coming from probation. The police can make referrals. Folks can self-referral. Parents. Yeah, it doesn't really matter how we get the referral or how we get somebody's name. Sort of being outreach-based, we can always sort of track somebody down and make sure that they're receiving services that they need.
And kids are referred to us for so many different reasons. We see youth from vaping, having trouble vaping, where their parents have caught them and they don't want them vaping, all the way to youth who struggle with fentanyl, everyday fentanyl use. So anything to do substance related, also for our elementary program. Well, we have some older youth that have this too, that have parents or loved ones that struggle with substance use issues can come see us as well.
And tell me what you do that helps youth and their families.
So we do a lot at Kairos. So typically, we're a substance use and addiction program, and the idea is that we would provide one-on-one counseling 1 or 2 times, bi-weekly, weekly, for youth to help them with their substance use. But it's more complicated because most of the kids that see us aren't ready to change their substance use. So it's a lot of trying to assist youth to see how their substance use affects their life negatively. And with that, because of their age, a lot of the times we're not just working with youth, we're working with the families, we're working with CAS workers, we're working with probation, we're in institutions, young offender institutions, we're at the homeless hubs, we're everywhere trying to do different things. So it's, even though we're supposed to just be substance use counselors, it's so much case management and so much education for loved ones around the people that we serve. So it's just pick a job, we do it. I've, baked stuff for people I work with,
driven clients to doctor's appointments, sat with them in waiting rooms. When we have consent to work with parents, it's a lot of providing parent support, harm reduction, education to parents.
Drove them to treatment. If for some riskier users, making sure that they have clean supplies, making sure that they're armed with Narcan or naloxone, or their families are, and that everybody knows how to use it. Gosh, we do a lot.
And why do you like what you do?
Go ahead.
I love what I do. So I've been doing this for a while. I also work with adults at the safe injection site, and there's a privilege in what we do, that we have the opportunity to get to know people and be so close with them that they share who they are with us, and it is it's just such a privilege. And sometimes at their lowest moments in their life, not just with the youth, but with their families. And there's just something incredible about being an instrument in somebody else's journey while they kind of make things better for themselves. Well, they save themselves, I guess, essentially is what it is. And just being able to witness that and be a part of it it's I could cry. It's beautiful. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, I can't summarize it better than that. So ditto what Jamie said, for sure.
Wow. And who are some of your community partners?
I'm going to forget a ton of them, but we essentially, Youth Diversion's been in this community for 35 years, close to 40 years. Do we have 40 already? So over 40 years.
40 years, 5 years ago.
So I'd say there isn't a community partner that we're not at least collaborating with in some level, right? So lots of times it's CAS with the young people that we work with. CAS is a community partner we quite often are working with. But I mean, both school boards, Keys, SAC,
One Roof,
AMHS, if we're going to be transitioning somebody who is sort of aging out of our scope and trying to find them services as an adult.
Restart.
Girls Inc. Yeah, I mean,
Boys and Girls
Yeah, food, like Partners Mission Food Bank, like, you know, Salvation Army, I guess it would fall under. But yeah, it spans across.
Like Subsidy, the Kingston Police, like OPB. I don't know. I feel like I call everybody and harass them.
Yeah, and the nice thing too is because youth diversion has been rooted in the community for so long that even if we don't know the direct person that we might be referring to, we all have connections within each of those agencies that, you know, it's a one email away before a young person is connected where they have to be.
Yeah.
And that's what I really appreciate too, is that youth diversion, you know, the name Youth Diversion, if we sort of send out an email, we tend to get responses back pretty quickly.
Very good.
We're very lucky.
Yes, you are. And tell me one thing you wish the community understood better about the youth we serve.
So I feel like we could be here all day. I just feel like adolescence is a tricky time, and most of, I know like some of our clients fit in the like under adolescence or pre-adolescence or adult, but most of them are adolescents. You know, adolescence is a tricky time, and you know, a lot of the times you see on social media or something, kids do dumb things, and you know, the whole community wants to talk about how crazy it is that they would do that or demonize them or whatever, and it's just like a lot of the kids we serve are, I don't know, they're just great. They're just great. Even, it doesn't matter what they've done, you know, the behaviors they've participated in. They deserve the empathy and respect of the community, no matter what they've done, and a lot of them are better for it. So, you know, just understanding where they've come from. And
yeah, I think it's that old like saying, what is it, that there's no such thing as bad kids, just bad decisions or bad choices.
Or bad choices. Interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks in the community maybe forget how hard it was to be a kid, and some of those issues that arise, and how you feel everything so intensely. But then also you mix in a lot of folks we work with, you mix in the trauma, the lack of support, you know, not knowing how to navigate some of those things, and of course, you know, bad decisions are going to be made, right? So I guess, like Jamie said, it's just like if we could grow a little more empathy for the folks that Youth Diversion are working with, that would be like a dream.
That'd be ideal.
Yeah.
And also I feel like I've really learned this probably in the last 5 years, that we have higher expectation of our kids than we do of ourselves. Behaviors that we haven't figured out yet, whether it's like the social media scroll or like the YouTube wormhole or eating things we shouldn't for too long, or, you know, in ways that we as adults are also not regulated. We expect our kids to have the skills to just like get home, do their homework, stay off their phone, you know, don't gossip, stay out of drama. Like, and adults are still doing all of that. So it's, I would like adults to think about that more. Because one day it really dawned on me, because I used to like, when my kid was like 13, she wouldn't just do her homework, and I was just like, oh, you need to put your phone aside, you need to just do your homework. And then one day I was like, lost like 4 hours of my life in like, who knows what I was looking up, I have no idea. And then I just like had like an aha moment where I was just like, I can't even regulate myself, and I expect my 13-year-old to be able to do so. So just like that, yes.
Yeah, just a little more patience.
Yeah.
And I think some understanding of like what Youth Diversion does as a whole in terms of our like preventative work. Because I think a lot of times too, like that mischief that young people get into in the community, you know, if they're connected with folks here or other folks in the community, like other community agencies, you might see some of that mischief sort of decrease, opposed to just like maybe some punitive measures as well.
Absolutely. Or just like people spending time with them, right? And it's hard for parents, like our society is like built in a way that parents have to be off being busy all the time because they have to pay bills, you know, and our kids are being raised on screens, but like making sure that we're facilitating some sort of people with real connections in our kids' lives, even if we have to be like making the money to take care of them, right?
So, thank you very much.
Current youth outreach worker here at Youth Diversion. The program that I run is Youth Outreach, and it's open to youth ages 12 to 24. And this program specifically provides connections and referrals to other community members and support workers.
And what would a volunteer be doing in your program?
So volunteers in this program specifically support in a recreational capacity. So we do a lot of board game nights or snacks and chats. And board game night, we would invite youth and volunteers into our space here at Youth Diversion. We would play games together, have some snacks, and volunteers would be asked to help clean up at the end of the event. If we were doing like a snacks and chat style event, volunteers would come in as like a conversation support, or they can actually lead the conversation if they're knowledgeable in the field that we're talking about.
Okay, what would be examples of behaviors volunteers might witness or be part of youth outreach, and when should a volunteer seek your support?
Sure. So one of the few things that we do see in our recreational events is there can be some kind of like aggravation and frustration from our youth. A youth may be short with a volunteer, or they can kind of lead the conversation with disrespect just as they're testing the boundaries of our program. Volunteers can also witness youth using bullying behaviors on other youth. Sometimes youth just come into the program and they have some drama with other participants. So volunteers should always seek support whenever the situation becomes escalated. Generally, if it can't be solved with a "hey, that's not a cool thing to say," I would definitely suggest grabbing support from a YD staff. Support is always mandatory if a youth discloses that they are a harm to themselves or a harm to someone else, if they are being harmed by someone else, and if they have broken the law.
Wow. And how do you get your referrals?
So I get referrals through two sources. Internally through Youth Diversion programming, so any of the programs here can refer to me. But I also get them through the community. So I have a referral form for service providers, but I usually just end up getting emails and texts and calls about a youth that needs support. A youth can also self-refer to our program as well by texting or calling.
Great. And how many youth are in your program, and what are the ages of the youth in your program?
So there isn't a limit or capacity number for the number of youth that can attend youth outreach. On our inside events that we do like here in the building, typically we cap it at 20 to 30 depending on COVID capacity limits, but in terms of youth that I can support, it is unlimited. Part of this is because sometimes I'll only see youth once or twice and then I won't hear from them for several months or ever again. But our goal as an agency is to support a minimum of 50 youth a week. Our goal as an agency is to support a minimum of 50 youth a year.
Okay, great. And what qualities are you looking for in a volunteer?
Sure. So volunteers in the youth outreach program, we really look for people who have that initiative and drive to just jump into any situation and say, "Hey, this is my name, let's play a board game," or "let's hang out," or "let's talk about what are you interested in." So we really want volunteers with that kind of initiative. The other part that we're really looking for is compassionate volunteers. So a lot of our youth come from diverse backgrounds. They may have special needs, or they may live in poverty or have drug use in the home. They're just very diverse, and we never know who's coming into our events. So to have a volunteer that just understands that youth come from different places and just to treat everyone with respect and be compassionate about that is really important to us.
And why do you like what you do?
I love my job. I'm very passionate about my job. I love the flexibility that it offers. I love that I can meet a youth at a Tim Hortons or the Integrated Care Hub or anywhere in the community, their home, and just see what they need at that moment. I love helping youth achieve their goals and watching out for them in the future when they tell me how well they've succeeded since I've seen them past.
Great.
Welcome, Nick, and thank you for joining me today to hopefully share some of your experiences that you've had as a volunteer with us at Youth Diversion. So, Nick, maybe just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, as I said, I'm a teacher candidate currently at Queen's University for teaching sort of intermediate, senior so high school, so 7 to 12. My specialties are music and English, but I'm comfortable in French, drama, various other little things I can do. I'm ex-military. I was a combat diver and combat engineer for a number of years, and I'm now a permanent resident of Kingston. Have been for the last couple of years, pretty much since the pandemic hit, and I plan to stay here for a very long time.
Nice. So, Nick, how did you first hear about Youth Diversion, and what inspired you to volunteer with us?
Well, I was, as part of our program in the Bachelor of Education at Queen's, we have a focus that we choose, and I chose at-risk youth and adolescents. So working with and teaching at-risk youth, and at-risk is in quotations, of course. So often we refer to them as youth of promise. But so through this program, and Pam Surf, who was the one who referred me to Youth Diversion, and I was interested certainly in the mentorship opportunity. And then when I found out more about the mentorship program, and I found out that Youth Diversion has other programs like the Rebound and the WeBound and Youth Outreach, then I was really interested in coming on board.
Awesome. So now that you're at Youth Diversion, before you came, what way did you want to help the kids? Like, in what way did you see yourself helping our youth?
Well, I saw myself as a relatively stable, healthy individual that could provide sort of a stable male role model to youth of any age or gender. So, and I was really just keen on getting some experience in working with this kind of population, which struggles in various aspects of their lives, to give me a little bit more insight, so that I could better work with them in a school environment. That was the initial sort of my initial goal, and it has in being there and participating in outreach and the mentorship program and the Rebound, I've seen I've sort of honed the goal into providing a safe place for young people to hang out in a positive space. Really.
Okay. And would you say, in respect to your goals coming into the Youth Diversion, that you feel that your goals have lined up with your expectations?
Generally, yes. I was surprised, being post sort of tail end of the pandemic. I know that it wasn't as well populated as it has been in past years, as I found out from getting to know the staff. So I was surprised at how few people were showing up to certainly the outreach program, and then but it has grown quite a bit in the weeks that I've been there. Certainly not in no part due to my efforts. I had nothing to do with that, but just seeing more and more young people coming out to these events was certainly heartening. Yeah.
Okay.
As far as my goals go, I think I came in with a pretty open mind, and I was just there to learn and learn from the staff, and learn from the kids, and seeing what they need and what they sort of want to get out of their experiences. And really, what it was a safe place to be and spend time without having to worry about very much of anything.
So, Nick, would you say that Youth Diversion has supported you throughout your time so far with us at Youth Diversion?
Oh, certainly. All staff have been, very friendly and ready to answer any of my questions. In certain difficult situations, I called on a number of staff to give me guidance, and every time it's been very helpful. So yes, it's a very supportive.
Great. Nick, how would you describe your volunteer position at Youth Diversion? So I know you were in a few programs, but if you can tell me specifically about the Youth Outreach Program. I'd love to hear about your other experiences too, but specifically to youth.
Specifically the outreach.
Yeah.
I mean, for the outreach program, I did very little actual leading of activities. I did some, but I think I was sort of an integral part of leading by example in terms of participation and engagement. So, for instance, when Mary Grace ran some of her drama improv activities, highly professional, she knows exactly what she's doing, and they're very simple drama kind of games that I have experience with, so I was very comfortable in engaging with those and doing improv myself, which then showed the other participants that it was okay to be silly and to be goofy and to not really worry about your own dignity too much. So I think that's the main thing I was able to bring, sort of a good humor and open mind and sort of engagement, and I tried to promote engagement, and I would try and sort of pull that out of the youth that were there, sometimes more successfully than others.
Okay. Nick, what would you tell another volunteer coming into the Youth Outreach Program? What would you tell them? What would you think that would be beneficial for them to know? What would be one of the most important things that you think would be beneficial?
I think probably the most important thing would be to come in with an open mind and most above all, sort of a compassionate mind, because it's hard to imagine some of the experiences that some of these young people have been through, to put them in a place where they might benefit from activities at Youth Diversion. Whereas I think all young people could benefit from the activities put on by Youth Diversion. There's a certain population that is served by Youth Diversion, and they are that at-risk population. And so I would think coming in with compassion is the key here, because they're not always socially as competent as we would like, and that's part of the program's goal, is to sort of promote that kind of development and maturity and self-regulation. And so some of these kids don't have the strategies in place to make those happen, and that's part of, I think, the volunteers' role is to lead by example and model that kind of thing in self-regulation, emotional sort of stability, and compassion with others.
Good. Now, do you feel that as a volunteer, in your volunteer role, that you made an impact on any of the kids? And if so, how come?
I think so. It's hard to put a specific instance, but sometimes it's as simple, and I find that in the classroom too, it's the same thing. Sometimes simple words of encouragement, or even laughing at a joke or something that happened to be really well placed by a young person just tips the scale in their favor, and gives them the social capital to maybe venture out again, and engage perhaps a little further in the activity. Or so one of the things I like to do with my students and with any of the youth I work with at Youth Diversion is to sort of reinforce the competing behavior rather than punish negative behavior. So if somebody's not participating and then they start participating, really make a big deal of praising that, and then we're likely to see more of that, and that goes with just about any behavior. So while I didn't have very many negative experiences in really any of my volunteering at Youth Diversion, sometimes it was a little emotionally charged, and we dealt with those situations pretty quickly, but then got back to sort of having a good time, and participating in the activities, and those who wanted to engage saw that it was safe to do so, and I think got more out of the program when that happened.
Cool. Now I'm almost getting to the end. What was one of the major challenges that you faced as a volunteer? And if there was any that you can remember, how would you say that, that was overcome?
Here's one. I brought my my mentee to one of the outreach activities, and it happened to be an activity that I was leading. So I was doing the bucket drumming thing last month, and my mentee came, and my mentee is very self-conscious and is a little too cool for school, he's too cool for anything, and I found it really frustrating that he didn't participate and then made it safe for others not to engage. And so that was problematic, and there already weren't that many people in attendance, and so when he seemed to make it okay for him not to participate, I mean, I'm not there to be mad at anybody, so I'm not going to yell at them and make them participate. Nobody wants that. But my expectation was that he would, and he didn't. And then it made it okay for others not to, and that was difficult to navigate. And so I would say that would be sort of the hardest thing that I went through. So really, all told, not that hard.
Okay, Nick, just to clear up, so you are a volunteer in a few of the programs. So what you were talking about is you are in outreach, but also you're a mentor volunteer, and you had taken your mentee to one of the activities. Now, how did that ever ended up? Like, whatever happened in the end with the kids?
I had a chat with my mentee afterwards. I did my damnedest to engage the ones during the activity, to engage the ones that were there, and some were very engaged and participated and had a great time. And some of the less socially adept youth that were there were the ones who saw that, it was okay not to participate, and then and sat out. They were present, but they didn't participate very much, so didn't get very much out of the activity, but I invited them all individually to come back for more, and that maybe we could hear them drum the next time. So I tried to sort of extend the invitation further, and if we don't get them this time, we'll get them next time.
Cool.
So that's how I tried to play it. So we'll see tonight. Anybody?
Yeah. Okay. And my last question to you, Nick, was, what one piece of advice would you give to a volunteer coming into, let's say, into Youth Diversion in any one of our programs? What piece of advice do you have for them?
You know, one of the things that was really helpful to me in garnering sort of compassion and encouraging that idea is by going through the brain story training, for the 20-hour training that's, I think, the Alberta Family Wellness puts it on. And so that was extremely helpful, and I think anybody who works with anybody working with humans should take this course, but especially those working with youth. And I think that was the thing that helped most in terms of me reframing some of the behaviors that I was seeing, or some of the just some of the, not that they were bad behaviors, but just general behaviors, even social anxiety, those kinds of things. Any mental health issues that sort of manifest could be traced to something I read or saw in brainstorming.
So if you were to sum it up, what I know this is a big word, but how can you sum up your training of brainstorming to a volunteer, just for them to get the gist of it?
I would say something like, I would say there are very few actually evil or bad kids. I know that some may want to watch the world burn, but mostly there's a reason behind that, and it's often not their fault and rather tragic. So that's why compassion is really an important part of this kind of work. So I would think that, yeah, be compassionate, be open-minded, and because a lot of these, for a lot of these youth, maybe they've made bad decisions, but maybe there's really good scientific reasons for that.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you, Nick, for your time. I really appreciate it. And
you're very welcome.
Hope you enjoy your summer.
My name is Kirsty. I'm the Clinical Intersections Case Manager. Intersections is an intervention program for children and youth who are at risk of becoming justice involved, and it provides supports for families and youth who have come in contact with police or family and child services with situations like mental health, behavior, family conflict, peer conflict, substance use, etc. And it helps to reduce and prevent further interactions with the police and our justice system.
Okay, and what would a volunteer be doing in your program?
So a lot of our volunteers are placement students, do a lot of the things that we're doing. So they can partake in our intakes, assessments, data recording, so our case notes, and are able to interact with youth and families.
And what would be examples of behaviors volunteers might witness or be part of intersections? And when would a volunteer seek your support?
Some behaviors might be whether it's from parents who are apprehensive about the program, youth who want nothing to do with us, or a lot of the times engagement or lack of is a big behavior that we see, especially those youth who are over the age of 12 and who can consent for themselves. I think those are the big ones. And when a volunteer or placement student should, or when they can seek our support, is whenever they have a question or whenever they're unsure about a process that we have, or when we contact parents, if they're unsure about how to text or call a parent back, any interactions that they may have within the community, any questions they have, they can come to us with any kind of support.
And how do you get your referrals?
For intersections, we get all of our referrals from police, whether that's OPP or Kingston Police or Family and Child Services.
What are some of the reasons the police would refer a youth to your program for?
So like I said before, some of our things are mental health, family crisis, family dynamics, conflicts, school conflicts and challenges, not going to school, anything that can be seen as not chargeable. So that's like sometimes it's theft, drug use, something.
Okay. And how many kids would you have in a year, and what are the ages of the youth in your program?
For the amount of kids that we have in a year, it varies from, I say, 20 to 60 plus. And then for ages, we typically work with youth 8 to 18 or 8 to 17.
And what qualities are you looking for in a volunteer?
That's a good question. Someone who can take initiative, who is not afraid to jump out of their comfort zone when they're having conversations with parents or when they're attending meetings with parents and kids and youth. Someone who, I think jumping out of your comfort zone is pretty key, but initiative is also a huge one. Other qualities would be someone who's organized, time-oriented, someone who isn't afraid to speak their mind and be honest about the challenges that they're having, whether that's a placement student in school and balancing both placement and school. Initiative and being able to jump outside of that comfort zone, for sure.
And why do you like what you do?
I love what I do. I love my job because I get to interact with families and youth in their most vulnerable, challenging states, and able to provide them with resources and connect them to resources in the community to help mitigate those challenges, or try to mitigate those challenges. I think that's the most rewarding part of my job.
Thank you very much.